A week after I moved into my new home, the former owner gave me a call. "I accidentally left the living room camera on," he said. "I happened to notice something. It's about your sill. You should see. This don't tell anyone. Come by yourself." When I arrived there, the screen switched on and started playing a video that left me completely frozen. The former owner's voice was still echoing in my head. "I accidentally left the living room camera on. It's about your SIL. Come alone." A week after moving into my new home, I was standing back inside the empty house he'd just sold me, staring at the dusty television mounted on the wall. My heart felt strangely calm, but my hands were cold. He didn't say much. He simply pressed play. The screen flickered to life. At first it looked like nothing, just my living room from the corner camera angle, afternoon light pouring through the windows. My furniture barely unpacked. Then the front door opened. My sister-in-law stepped inside. She wasn't supposed to have a key, but she did. She walked in like the house already belonged to her, talking on the phone. Her voice echoed clearly through the recording. "Yeah," she laughed softly. "They bought it already. Now we just wait." Then 2 men followed her inside. And suddenly, I realized something that made my stomach drop. They weren't visitors. They were there to take something that belonged to me. I'm the kind of person people usually overlook. Quiet, observant, the one who listens more than he talks. In family gatherings, I'm the guy pouring drinks in the kitchen while louder personalities dominate the living room. It never bothered me much. Silence has its advantages. A week before that video played, I had finally bought my first house. Nothing extravagant, just a modest place I'd spent years saving for. To me, it meant independence, stability, proof that all the long hours and careful choices had been worth something. My wife was happy too, or at least that's what I believed. Her younger sister Nadia had always been around, loud, charming, the kind of person who could talk her way into anything. She liked to joke that I was too calm for my own good. At family dinners, she'd tease me, saying I looked like the type who'd get robbed and politely hold the door open. Everyone laughed. I usually did too, but I had noticed small things over the years, whispers that stopped when I entered a room. The way Nadia asked oddly specific questions about my savings, my job, my plans. I ignored those instincts, because you don't expect betrayal to come from someone sitting at your own table. But that afternoon, watching the footage in that empty house, I realized something chilling. Nadia hadn't just been curious about my life, she'd been studying it. As the video kept playing, small memories began rearranging themselves in my mind like pieces of a puzzle, finally falling into place. Nadia had always treated my house like a joke. The day we moved in, she walked through the living room with a slow, unimpressed glance, her heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor. She ran her fingers across the wall like she was inspecting a hotel room. "Cute," she said with a thin smile. "Not bad for a first house." My wife laughed nervously beside her. I pretended not to notice the tone. Later that evening, while everyone was eating dinner on the floor because the table hadn't arrived yet, Nadia leaned back on her hands and studied the room again. "So where do you keep important stuff?" she asked casually. "Important stuff?" I said. "Cash, jewelry, documents. You know," she shrugged. "People break into new houses all the time." At the time, I thought she was just making conversation. But looking back, there were dozens of moments like that. Her eyes drifting toward the hallway where my office was. Her quiet questions about the security system. The way she once joked, "You trust people too easily." Each comment had been wrapped in laughter. Each one had sounded harmless. But now, watching her on that screen calmly unlocking my front door, I realized something unsettling. Those weren't jokes. They were rehearsals. The video stopped just as the 2 men began moving through my hallway. The former owner didn't say anything for a moment. The room felt unusually quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. "You should know," he finally said, folding his arms. "The system records everything. Motion triggers. Audio too." He pressed another button. The screen jumped ahead a few minutes. Nadia was standing near my office door, speaking to the 2 men in a low voice. One of them carried a small toolkit. The other was already checking drawers in the living room. "Quick," she whispered. "He keeps documents in there, and maybe cash." My office door opened. I felt a strange calm settle over me as I watched. No anger, no shouting, just a quiet clarity. They stayed inside for almost 20 minutes. When they left, Nadia carefully locked the door behind them. The same way someone locks their own home. The screen went black again. I stared at my reflection in the dark television. That was the moment everything shifted. Not because they had tried to steal from me, but because Nadia clearly believed something far more dangerous, that I was too quiet to notice, and too soft to do anything about it. For the first time, I understood the advantage of being underestimated, and I decided I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to let her continue. I didn't confront Nadia. That would have been the loud, emotional choice, the one she would expect. Accusations, arguments, family drama, and once the noise started, everyone would rush to defend someone. Instead, I thanked the former owner for showing me the footage and asked him for a copy of the entire recording system. He didn't hesitate. That night, I watched every minute. Nadia had returned twice before that day, each visit brief, careful, always looking around before unlocking the door. She clearly thought the house cameras had been disconnected after the sale. They hadn't been. I saved the footage, every timestamp, every conversation, every face. Then I began making quiet adjustments. First, I changed every lock in the house and upgraded the security system. Not just cameras, motion alerts, entry logs, remote access, the kind that records exactly when a key is used. Second, I checked something that had been bothering me since the video. How Nadia got the key. The answer came quicker than expected. My wife's key ring. One evening while she was showering, I noticed the faint outline of a freshly copied house key among the others, a cheap duplicate, slightly rough at the edges. I didn't mention it. Instead, I contacted a lawyer friend and asked a simple question. If someone enters a home using a copied key and brings others with them, I said quietly, what exactly does that count as? His answer was short. Premeditated burglary. That was all I needed. I didn't change my behavior around Nadia. At the next family dinner, she was exactly the same, loud, confident, leaning back in her chair like the world belonged to her. She joked about my boring quiet house while casually sipping tea. I smiled politely, but the house she was planning to visit again wasn't the same house anymore. A week later, the security system sent a notification to my phone at 2:14 p.m. Front door unlocked. I opened the live feed and watched. Nadia stepped inside first, the same calm confidence in her posture. The same two men followed behind her. They moved quickly this time, already familiar with the layout. She whispered, "We have 10 minutes." What she didn't know was that the locks had been reprogrammed. The moment the door closed behind them, the smart system engaged. Every entry point sealed automatically. Inside the house, motion alerts triggered the silent alarm. I watched from my phone as Nadia's expression slowly changed. One of the men tried the front door. It wouldn't open. A minute later, police sirens appeared on the street camera. Nadia's voice, once so confident, turned sharp with panic. "No, wait! There's been a mistake!" But the footage, the entry logs, the copied key, and the earlier recordings were already waiting. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse anyone. I simply let the truth walk through my front door and lock itself inside. The phone calls started that same evening. First, my wife, her voice shaking with confusion. "Hamza, Nadia was arrested. The police said it happened at our house." "What's going on?" I answered calmly. They entered without permission. The security system recorded everything. There was a long silence on the other end. By the next day, the entire family knew. At the police station, the evidence was simple and impossible to argue with. Security footage, timestamps, the copied key, and the earlier recordings the former owner had saved. Nadia's confident smile from family dinners didn't help her anymore. What shocked everyone most wasn't the crime. It was how long it had been planned. Some relatives tried to soften it. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she thought she had permission. But the recordings spoke for themselves. My wife struggled with it the most. Betrayal cuts deeper when it comes from someone you grew up with. She kept replaying old memories, trying to understand how her sister had crossed that line. And me? For years, I'd been the quiet one people joked about, the one they assumed would never push back. That illusion disappeared overnight, because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who sees everything and waits. In the weeks that followed, life grew quieter. The investigation moved forward steadily. With the recordings, the entry logs, and the police reports, the case didn't take long to build. Nadia's confidence, the same confidence that once filled every room she entered, had vanished the moment the evidence began speaking for itself. Family gatherings changed too. Some relatives avoided the topic entirely. Others offered quiet apologies for the years of jokes about how soft I was. I didn't hold any anger toward them. People believe what they see, and for a long time I had allowed them to see only silence. My wife took longer to heal. Losing trust in your own family leaves a deep scar. But slowly, the distance from the chaos helped. Our home, our real home, became a place where that chapter no longer had power. As for me, I didn't feel triumph. What I felt was something calmer, clarity. The house that once symbolized independence had ended up teaching me something even more valuable. Being quiet doesn't mean being weak. and patience is often stronger than confrontation. Nadia thought silence meant ignorance, but silence can also mean observation, and sometimes the person who says the least is the one who understands the most.